Hello everyone and welcome back into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for today, September 21st. It's a Thursday. It's a 7-game main slate in total. You'll notice that I am not doing a live stream today. The internet's been really slow and laggy lately, so it's really been affecting the audio quality. So I'm going back to a little bit of pre-recorded videos until future notice. So hopefully that's okay with most of you. I know a lot of people have been watching after the stream anyway, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. But if you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this kind of structure I'll be using for today's video. We will not be doing a recap of yesterday's picks since it was kind of a crappy slate yesterday, smaller slate, and I just kind of went over the slate in totality. But I'll be looking at the weather report for today over on RotoWire. Any games that could have some notable weather for today, if there's any other major updates throughout the day, I will try to leave that down in the comments. I do have a soccer game going on later today, so we'll have as much information out, prior to about 4 o'clock Central Time as possible. Might be a little bit hit or miss after that, but definitely be sure to check that out throughout the day in terms of weather, in terms of starting lineups. Then we'll get over to FanDuel, talk about my core 5 picks for today. It's going to be a combination based on past performances and recent history, so should be pretty interesting there. Guys that I really want to highlight for today's slate overall. And then last but not least, we'll get over to the YouTube community tab, talk about my cheat sheet and the top GPP teams to stack for today overall. If you're interested in more in-depth notes, be sure to check out the Patreon at patreon.com/CoachCraigSports. You'll get notable hitter versus pitcher matchups, pitchers whether or not I would consider them in play, a risky play, or a straight-up avoid, and some additional stacks on some of the larger slates Monday through Friday. Very small monthly donation over there, so I do recommend that you check it out. Helps you out building in your lineups for the day overall. But without further ado, we'll get started with that weather report for today. There is only truly one game that we're looking at in terms of weather for today. It's going to be the game in Chicago with the Cubs and the Pirates. 24% chance of rain. The wind's actually blowing in this game a little bit too, which is kind of unfortunate, but it does look like a game that should ultimately end up going off. If anything does majorly change, as always, throughout the day, we'll leave it down in the comments. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel for today. We'll talk about our core 5 picks. So we are going to start off at the pitcher position with Tariq Skubal, who, he's been doing pretty well as of late. He pitched pretty well versus Oakland so far this season, which was 30 points in essentially his first start of the season. So it was a little bit limited in that start. Pitched pretty well against them last year. So don't really have any concerns there. Has decent history versus Oakland in the past, although it is a small sample size. Nobody really has more than 5 at-bats versus him. But if you kind of look at what he's done so far on the season, he's $10,300, just under 34 fantasy points per game, 6 wins, a 3.25 ERA, so looking like one of the better Detroit starters at this point in time. And he's been really consistent as of late. The last 4 starts have been up over 40 points, so definitely do like the upside that he does present overall. Then we're going to move down to second base with Ozzie Albies. He's $3,800. Going against the Washington Nationals, the projected starter is Jake Irvin on the mound, and none of these Braves hitters have faced him before, so that will include Ozzie Albies. But Albies averaging about 12 fantasy points per game on the season, 270 average, 31 home runs, 99 RBIs. Obviously, a guy that can steal base here and there as well. And like I said, there is no history versus Jake Irvin in the past. He's on a 7-game hitting streak, including 5 multi-hit games during that stretch. So I really do like the upside that Ozzie Albies does present overall today. Definitely going to be one of the preferred players in my lineups today, especially if I'm going with a Braves stack. Even if I'm not going with a Braves stack, still looks like a pretty strong one of for today as well. Then we're going to go down to our next hitter, and Brian Hayes at $3,000, averaging about 10 fantasy points per game. Goes against Kyle Hendricks today. He is 8 for 18 with 2 home runs in his career versus Kyle Hendricks. Brian Hayes is up to a 276 average, 14 home runs, 60 RBIs on the season. He's kind of a guy that comes in streaks throughout the season. He's on one of those pretty good streaks as of late. He's got at least 1 hit in 13 out of his last 15 games, including 6 multi-hit games during that time span, and I believe 3 home runs during that time span as well. So I really do like the upside that he does present in a favorable matchup for him versus Kyle Hendricks tonight. Then we're going to move down to our next hitter, which is going to be one that we need to make sure is in that starting lineup. It's Oswaldo Cabrera for the New York Yankees. He's $2,100. Averaging just about 5.5 fantasy points on the season, but you got to keep in mind, part-time player here too as well. He's got a 220 average, 5 home runs, 28 RBIs on the season. A guy that could steal base here and there as well. And in his career versus Jose Barrios, who is the projected starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays tonight, he is 5 for 9. He's got at least 1 hit in 7 out of his last 9 games, although only 2 of those games have been multi-hit games, so a little bit less of an upside. But at $2,100, if he's in that starting lineup, even if he's batting towards the bottom third of the lineup for the Yankees tonight, looks like a pretty interesting play with the history that he does have versus Jose Barrios, plus the decent recent history as well. And then last but not least, we're going to go with Ian Happ. He's $3,200. He is going against Johan Oviedo today of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's 8 for 16 versus him in his career. And right now we got Ian Happ on a 6-game hitting streak. 4 of those games have been multi-hit games. And if you look at what Ian Happ's done on the season in totality, $3,200, averaging just under 11 fantasy points per game. 248 average, that's kind of like the one downside with him, but 19 home runs, 77 RBIs at this point in time. Do like the upside that Ian Happ could present on tonight's slate overall. So we got 4 different hitters there from 4 different teams. Obviously, if you're playing in GPP, you probably want to do a little bit more stacking, kind of mix and match some of these guys, but I do like all 4 of them, so I really want to just highlight them alongside Tariq Skubal. But, as always, feel free to mix and match. Definitely a lot of different ways that we can approach the slate once again. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to the community tab and talk about my cheat sheet and the top GPP plays for today. So the top GPP stacks that I do have for today, we have the Atlanta Braves. Already touched on them just a little bit with Ozzie Albies. None of these hitters have history versus Jake Irvin in the past. Jake Irvin hasn't been terrible this year. And, ERA is right about 4.4, 4.5 on this season. But do really like the upside the Braves lineup could present versus him today. Then we have the Los Angeles Dodgers going against Kyle Harrison, most likely. Could be Ross Stripling. We'll just have to see as the day moves along. But either way, it looks pretty good for the Dodgers. They don't really have history versus Kyle Harrison. If it's Ross Stripling, they have pretty decent history versus him. And then for the Chicago Cubs, Johan Oviedo is the opposing pitcher for them. He's really had a hit or miss in terms of his starts versus the Cubs throughout his career. So do you like the upside the Cubs could present today? Ian Happ's going to be a major one. Nico Horner, kind of mix and match, and some other guys here and there as well could make some sense. And then last but not least, I do like the Philadelphia Phillies going against David Peterson, who's not pitched too great this season. There's not a long list of track record there, but Bryce Harper's hit him really well. Nick Castellanos looks pretty good if you want to mix and match some other players in there as well. Definitely does make some sense. There are a couple other sneaky teams on today's slate. Not a long list of history in terms of notable hitter versus pitcher matchups, kind of like yesterday, but looks more favorable for the hitters today as opposed to yesterday where it looked a little bit more favorable for the pitchers. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have in terms of MLB DFS Core Picks for today, September 21st. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play down there as well, whether it's someone from my Core 5 picks, whether it's someone from my top GPP stacks, or whether it's a completely different player you guys think I missed. Definitely interested in hearing who that is for you today. And then, as always, I'll be listing any major weather updates as well as many starting lineups as I can get to throughout the late afternoon and early evening. Like I did mention, I do have a soccer game starting about 4 o'clock Central Time, so it will be a little bit hit or miss after that point. Hopefully, we get a good handful of lineups out before that point in time as well. But with that being said, if you're checking out my channel for the very first time or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. There's MLB DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the core picks. We got CFL DFS video once a week. We got NFL DFS video once a week. CFL DFS video will be coming out later today, so definitely be on the lookout for that. That's over on the DraftKings side. That NFL DFS video probably coming out on Saturday morning. That is going to cover both DraftKings and FanDuel, kind of taking a look player by player, game by game, whether or not I would be playing certain players, overweight or slightly underweight to the field just based on those players as well. And then last but not least, great time to get into sports betting if you haven't done so already. If it's legal in your state, be sure to check out these sites. We got Prize Picks, we got Parlay Play, and we got BetUS. They're all listed down in the description below. Got some promo codes out there. Helps you guys out a little bit. It helps me out on the side as well. If you have any questions about that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. Be more than happy to help you with each and every one of those sites. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.